So let's see what Riot has to say about the upcoming patch. There's some interesting changes here. Mal power budget distribution re. Abilities are in a pretty good spot, so we're adding more power to her to bolster her win rate without pushing her poke or ranged all-in damage. We like her E being more about utility catch and Q being the thing to dodge for damage. We're being cautious around pursue frustration. Our changes to Gwen have landed Shay pretty well, moving power out of her being a scaling, full squishy AP one-shot champion. She's a little too present right now, so we're taking her down a tad. Changes to Annie are aimed at increasing her satisfaction by moving a bit of power out of Tiber's sustained damage, which can be hard to feel and into some of her spells. Also adding some pen to the kit innately, so she's a bit better at killing tanks with multiple rotations and doesn't need to one-shot squishes as hard as a result, which is often frustrating for players. So I don't agree with what they're saying here. I don't think this is right at all. They're adding % magic pen, which is true, it is better against tanks than squishes, but adding % magic pen to Annie will not make her kill tanks. In fact, this would just make her deal with squishes easier. So even though they're trying to make her better against tanks, it will just not happen. Syndra's builds have been pretty heavily in the Moonspit Kite builds, and we're moving power budget out of that and a bit more into her actual burst purchases, so she has to build a bit more damage and AP. So this is also wrong, I'll explain why. The changes they're doing are not going to actually do anything regarding what they're saying here. I don't know how they don't see this. Zoe have been pretty absent for a while, giving her a bit of a bump to her wave clear. She's pretty telegraphed right now and can't push tempo as fast as she should. Changes last patch didn't quite hit the mark for Zarat. We're giving a small buff to Q and passive, which is mid-skewed. She's down now, she's crept up a while. We're happy she's not meta driving mid, just generally too powerful. Agree. Okay. So let's go over one by one. So Blitzcrank, we got passive mana AP ratio up by 5% and Q damage up by a lot. So we're talking about what? 15, 25 damage at rank 5. This is really big buff to Blitzcrank. This is probably like 1% winner to the champion. This is very nice. I think the champ deserves it, genuinely. This is gonna make it so if you get countered by Blitz, now on a hook, it's even easier to kill somebody, especially like a squishy character like Nami. I'm totally fine with this. I think these changes seem very fair. Brand, passive monster damage mod up by 25%. So this is probably, I'm assuming, going to make jungle Brand finally clear at a decent speed, which should make him a completely viable character to play in jungle.
Let's go.
But there's still
Thank you for your patience and answering all the questions tongue.
There's still some abilities that they nerfed to Brand when Brand was meta. I remember they nerfed, I think, E twice. They nerfed like 5 damage of E twice, and they nerfed like 1 second cooldown on E or something. So the character is still like missing some damage and cooldowns that he used to have when he was very present in the meta. But I mean, the first step is to make him clear jungle, right? Hui, passive base damage up by 50 at max level 18. Our explosion base damage up by 25 and 50 rank 11 and 16. So looking at these Hui changes, this is probably going to be at max 1% win rate. So they nerfed passive damage by 5% AP ratio a couple of patches ago. This change makes that nerf completely irrelevant because this will actually make the ability stronger now. So this is a very nice passive Hui buff. And I actually really think this is a good buff because it buffs Hui's late game mostly, which is the most underwhelming part about Hui anyway. The R explosion base damage going up by 25 and 50 is like placebo. This won't do anything. This ability already does very little damage if you compare it to a lot of other ultimates in the game. And yeah, it would be more impactful if it was level 6 buff, but level 11 and 20 and 16 is just like, eh. But I still think it's a good buff regardless, because I just like that they're buffing Hui's late game. This is exactly how I would buff Hui as well. Now, if you compare Hui now to comparing to Hui before the nerfs, the only difference now is going to be that his QW is nerfed still early, and his W specifically is a lot worse. Like WE, the damage spell on W. But the passive is going to be better than before, and the R is slightly better. So this is okay. I'm happy with the changes. Mad attack speed ratio goes to normal, so from 0.4 to 0.625, which is like the normal attack speed ratio that majority of characters have in League. The reason why Mel had a very bad attack speed ratio is probably because Riot was skeptical and afraid that people would be buying Nosher stuff on Mel. They don't want Mel players to buy Nosher, they want Mel to be a mage. I don't think that even though this is buffed, I don't think Nauseous Tooth Mal is gonna happen. So this is fine. Health 20 up, very nice. She kind of needs this. She's a weak laner, honestly, and having more HP in lane is very needed for her. Passive attack damage per stack also up by 3 to 5. This is also fine. So mostly early game buffs for Mal. I'm honestly kind of happy with this. This is like at max also 1% win rate probably. Renekton, damage on R goes from 30 to 90 to 30 to 120. Honestly, fucking useless buff. Shen, Q moving away slow. 10% up and W cooldown down by 2 at every rank. So this is a character that doesn't build any haste, by the way. So these buffs are insane. I think this is probably more than 1% win rate. Like, these are really absurd Shen buffs. This is like really big for the champion. And also I kind of like these buffs, honestly. Like, although I think Shen W is like, to me, Shen W is like a spell that is so OP in the right spot and so useless in a bad spot. Singe passive per target cooldown on passive goes back to 8 seconds, so they're just reverting one of the nerfs. Okay, cool. That's like at least 1% win rate probably. Sona Q damage up by 20. So here I'm a little bit like, it's an interesting buff. This ability does pretty bad damage, but it's an interesting buff because I know a lot of Sona players put like 3 points Q into maxing W. So I wonder if now it's gonna make them max out Q straight up to 5 points. But I think this is a pretty small buff regardless. Zarat, passive cooldown per kill, 1 second up. Very nice. Actually, this is one of the buffs that I wanted Riot to do a while ago because I felt like his passive could just be buffed more. This passive is just only useful in early game, and once you reach first lost chapter item or whatever, the passive just becomes completely useless. I still think they need to do work on Zarat passive. My idea on Zarat passive is that in late game, after like let's say level 13, he gets a rapid fire cannon auto attack range. On auto attack with a little bit more bonus damage. So it makes the passive usable in late game. Q damage up by 5, so this is also really nice. So Zarat Q has very nice AP ratio. The weakness of the ability is that it has bad base damage. Now, it's still on the low end of base damage of abilities, but it's still nice. Like, the ability damage is going up, and this is what Zarat needs. This is like really good buff. Zari, Archchain, lightning damage up by 5% total AD. I think it's like nice, but like won't really change much. Under 1% win rate for sure. Zoe, yeah. I talked about this yesterday. I think this is going to make Zoe really OP. Like, especially in solo queue. Especially in China. In Heimemar specifically, like Diamond Master we're talking about. Like, this buff, if I am not mistaken, will make her one-shot range minions at level 5 and one-shot range minions, melee minions at level 7 potentially, depending on how much AP you have. It's absurd. I think it's probably way too big. Gwen, Eon hit damage down by 4. Very small Gwen nerf. I'm also very confused by this nerf because Riot wants Gwen to not... Actually, no, this nerf is fine. The more that I think about it. It's a small nerf though, because you have to think about like... This is like 2 damage post resists, but it's like still, it's just a small nerf. I think this will not do a lot to Gwen. My team is in a meeting, I'm gonna hurry up really fast. So Lulu held down by 30, big nerf. Lulu's win rate is absurd this patch. I wonder if she has a bug, because her win rate went up a lot this patch, I don't know why. 30 health is usually like 1% win rate down, especially in high MMR, so high MMR skewed nerf. Tristana R cooldown 120, so this is gonna match ultimates like Yon in lane, which is also very big. And then the R damage is going down also by 50, which is gonna make a lot easier to lane against Tristana, because she won't be able to burst you as much. Big early game nerf to Tristana, but in late game she will still be one of the best champs. Yon also pretty big nerf, because it's percent damage down, and this ability is very usable, spammable. 2% damage down, like big nerf. Yorick, Yumi honestly nerfs are very small, no point reading them. Yumi is really good right now, people just don't understand that they have to play with a crit ADC like Lucian. Lucian Yumi is very good, or Zari Yumi. Ari, okay, so about Ari, let's talk about really fast. So these are all nerfs. Armor growth down is a nerf, and it's a pretty big one. I also don't see how this nerf, armor growth being down, doesn't make Ari not build raw. It makes you more build raw. W base damage going down, but W AP ratio being up is usually also a nerf. You need 200 AP for this to be a buff for the most part. And this doesn't really affect raw build, nor does it affect Malignance build that much. I mean, it's just an early game nerf. This is mostly an early laning phase nerf. W cooldown being up by 1 second nerfs raw build a little bit more than Malignance build, sure. And then the EAP ratio being up buffs Malignance build over raw build. So sure, this is, I would say most of the changes are a little bit better for Malignance Ari than they are for raw Ari. But I just don't think this is enough to like skew the builds And I think this is just an overall nerf to the champion. And yeah, I talked about it yesterday. Syndra, this is also just a nerf to the champ. So 25% W. So I saw people talking about that this is not a lot. This is huge for the champion. This is massive for the champion. This champion really requires the slow to be at 45% later on, because people don't understand how much players, how Mercs or Swift is, and 25% is just a low number of slow. E damage gets gutted completely. The base damage on the ability is horrible now. The AP ratio goes to 60%. You need what? 100 AP for the ability to be better, basically. You need 100 AP. So it's a nerf to the ability before you get 100 AP. Then the ability will do more damage throughout the game, 100%. Our base damage down by 10, but the AP ratio up by 3%. You need 333 AP for this to be a buff. So in short, I just think this is a nerf to the champion in general, because you care more about early game than you care about late game. In late game, she's already good. It doesn't matter if you go Cosmic build, you still have high amounts of AP, so that doesn't matter. And the slow being down is just a nerf to the champion. Creepbloom 5 haste, I think Void's still better in majority of cases, but this is a very nice buff and exactly how Riot should buff Creepbloom. Opportunity is gonna be OP, in my opinion. This item is OP on melee champions, like Gangplank is very good with this item. Range champions, mostly the same item. Overlord Bloodmail is mostly a sound buff, and then Deadman's Plate is a joke of a nerf. I don't know, like 10% slow resist. Like, can they like think about a better nerf here? This is just a joke. Like, item will still be OP. Okay, that's it.